Hello, my name's Phil and I work for the Consumer Services Department at the Hozelock head office in Birmingham. With over 50 years horticultural expertise, we at Hozelock understand the rewards of gardening and want to help you to get the best from your garden. Okay, well in this video we're going to show you how to change the hose on the wall mounted fast reel, the 40 metre version. So the first thing we need to do is remove the feeder hose from the water inlet, like so, and put that to one side. So the next thing we need to do is remove this grey inlet, and to do that we need to remove the little green C-shaped securing clip that holds it in place. So I'm going to use this small screwdriver and use that just to lever the clip out of the groove that it sits in, like so. Retain that because you'll need that to put the elbow back in later. And then the grey elbow can just be pulled out of the middle of the reel like so and placed to one side. The next thing we need to do is pull all of the hose out of the fast reel. Now in this one it's secured in the parking position there, so I'm going to release the parking position and lie the hose on its back just so that it's a little bit more stable, and we can then pull all of the hose out of the reel. That's put the child lock into the off position. We can then pull all the hose out of the reel. Okay, so we've now pulled all 40 metres of the hose out of the fast reel, and now we're going to take the case apart and we'll lie the case on its back to do that. Securing the two case halves together, there are 9 screw holes here. So what we need to do is, using a Phillips or Posi type screwdriver, unscrew all of those 9 screws. Not forgetting the one that's in the middle of the handle. So we've loosened all the screws, and now we're going to basically just pop the two halves of the fast reel case apart. So just lifting them up. You can lift the top half of the case off. So if any of the screws didn't come out with the screwdriver when you loosened them, you can just push them up into the screw hole, and then we can turn the drum upside down and they should fall out onto the floor or onto your table. What we're going to do now is remove the drive belt that drives the layering mechanism, and again put that to one side for safekeeping. The next thing we're going to do is remove this cover plate with the 3 self-tapping screws that you can see there. With the 3 screws removed, we can then remove the cover plate, and we can then see the hose connected to the water inlet moulding, and just lifting the water inlet moulding out, we can then lift that off. Now, to save taking the time to undo all these clips and take everything off, I'm just going to use the quick method, because this hose is going to be replaced anyway, and I'm just going to cut through the hose with a pair of scissors. The old damaged hose can be then put to one side, and we're ready to replace the hose in the fast reel. Now you will have bought the hose replacement kit from Hozelock Customer Services, so we'll put that on the table and make sure all the parts are there and show you what to do with them. Okay, so we're ready to refit the replacement hose to the fast reel. What you will have got in the replacement kit is, of course, the new replacement hose. You'll get a new water inlet fitting, another anti-kink spring and another securing clip, and of course the written instructions should you need them. Okay, so now we're coming to connect the hose to the fast reel. The first thing we need to do is pass the end of the hose through the rollers in the layering mechanism, and then up through this gap in the drum here, and make sure the hose can lay along that semicircular cutout in the centre of the drum. We can then proceed to connect the hose water inlet onto the centre of the reel and onto the hose. To do that, we need to attach the anti-kink spring onto the water inlet moulding like so, by just screwing it onto the part of the water inlet that protrudes out the side, and then we can feed the spring down the centre of the hose like so. This spring just stops the hose kinking while it's inside the reel. The hose is then pushed fully onto the water inlet moulding, and the black clip that comes with the hose replacement kit is then fitted onto the hose like so. Position the clip so that it's approximately 3mm from the end of the hose, and squeeze the clips together, and then make sure they're nice and tight by using a pair of pliers or pincers and fully squeezing the clip together. So with the water inlet now fitted to the end of the hose, we can then refit the water inlet onto the centre of the black shaft of the reel. So that's just pushed on, making sure that the hose lies in the circular channel in the centre of the reel. So with the hose now fitted, the hose is now fitted and lying in the feeding channel, we can then refit the cover plate using the 3 screws. So now we've got the cover plate fitted, we can now put the drive belt back in place. Put the drive belt around the big gear first, then around the small gear. Just make sure that all the teeth are engaging on both of the large and the small gears, and then we'll be ready to fit the other half of the case back onto the reel. When we'll be fitting the case half back, we just need to make sure that everything lines up properly. There is a large boss that sticks out from the reel case in that position, and that is going to go through the middle of the hole in the layering mechanism like so, which will just hold everything in place and stop it moving about. With that in mind, we just offer the reel cases up together and line them up, making sure that hose isn't in the way, and gently push the cases together to line them up. Go around the outside of the case and make sure everything lines up in place. So we fitted the 2 case halves together, and just looking round the joint to make sure that everything lines up okay, there's no gaps there where the case is misaligned. We can now try to replace the screws into the case to hold it together. So the next thing we have to do is to wind all the hose back onto the reel. Now it's always best to have the hose fully laid out in as straight a line as possible to avoid any kinks or twists. So I'm going to unwind the hose as best I can now so that we can wind it back onto the reel. So all the hose is laid in a straight line, so we can now wind the handle to wind the hose back onto the reel. Now before we get the hose all the way in, I'm going to stop with a couple of meters still remaining and refit the water stop fitting onto the end of the hose so that the hose doesn't disappear inside the case and be lost. So we refit the water stop fitting onto the end of the hose, and we can then wind the remaining hose into the case. And I'm going to put the connector into its park position like so. Locating the water inlet elbow, you'll see it's got a long and a short side. So pushing the long end of the inlet elbow into the centre of the reel with the flange facing downwards like so. Push the elbow in as far as it'll go. And the last thing that remains to be done is to fit the circlip onto the end of the shaft. That retains the elbow. The last thing we need to do is refit the feeder hose to the inlet elbow of the fast reel like so. And that's it, we've now completed replacing the hose in our fast reel. That's it, job done.